Thank you for spending another midweek moment with the Wisconsin property taxpayers. I'm Paul Rozeski. Today is Wednesday, February the 18th, 2026. Thanks for being here. Before we jump into some headlines, let's take a quick look at the week ahead. First, something cool in Wisconsin. You may have been hearing about this on the news and seeing it on the socials. For the first time in more than a decade, the ice caves at the Apostle Islands are open for viewing and visiting. The next day they were closed because of the weather, but still you can go actually walk out on the frozen lake, explore the sea caves carved into the mainland cliffs that have all sorts of amazing ice formations. People from all over the nation are coming to check them out. Looking at the calendar of the week, today marks the beginning of both Ramadan and Lent. On Friday, you can celebrate National Muffin Day for breakfast and follow it up with a classic Wisconsin fish fry for National Tartar Sauce Day. And next Tuesday, for those of you who've been following the Winter Olympics, it is officially Curling is Cool Day. I've already been observing that one for about a week now, even before it got exciting with cheating scandals. This week, we update the status of a proposed tax rebate, take another look at a stunning example of financial mismanagement, examine what's really happening with data center energy costs, and wrap it all up with a POTUS quote from a mostly self-educated man that famously walked miles just to borrow books. Place your bets on who it is, and in the meantime, let's jump into some news together. And let's start with property taxes. That'd be appropriate. Assembly Leader Robin Vos and State Leader Vos and LeMahieu have a long storied history of not really working very well together. And they were airing their differences out in the open last week, but they quickly came together and set a unified proposal for a tax rebate to Governor Evers. Evers and Vos had been laying the groundwork for what a deal might look like earlier in the week, and what was sent over included an income tax rebate for everyone, and millions in property tax relief, and help for flooding victims, and funding for food share administration, and rebates for educator supplies, and a funding boost for special education. Talk about checking off all of Evers' priorities. Well, all of them except one, because it didn't include more general school funding. The governor is throwing out the whole proposal because it doesn't include that. At least that's what he said. Here's what makes it politically fascinating. In his State of the State address, the governor highlighted 7 years of bipartisan cooperation and hundreds of bipartisan bills signed into law. And in the next breath, he signals a broad compromise package may not be good enough, even though the Republicans let one of their big priorities die and weren't pushing to repeal the 400-year property tax increase. Evers could let go one of his big priorities, letting money go into the school slush fund to get multiple layers of tax relief to Wisconsinites, but no, he won't. In other news, don't forget that the Milwaukee Public Schools, like we talked about last week, just realized that they overspent their 2024-2025 budget by $46 million. Shocking. The Republicans don't want to just pump more money into the education slush fund when the governor snaps his fingers. In other news, the legislature, true to form at the end of the session, has met more times in the past couple of weeks than it has in the past few months. And they've been pushing through piles and piles of legislation, and we're planning to do the same thing today. But the Democrats seem to have had other plans. They have been proposing amendment after amendment to every bill that gets taken up, no matter the topic. The goal is to try and get some legislation passed related to breast cancer screenings and expanding badger care coverage to mothers for 12 months after having a baby. The full floor legislative proceedings have been paused way more than they've been taking up actual official business today. For me, it's been interesting because the original calendar plan was for the assembly to be done as of this week, actually today. Well, last week it was starting to look like that wasn't going to be able to happen, and they may have to be back next week or even into March. It was interesting to observe as I'm going around and talking to people, which staffers were just telling me the party line, either because they were loyal to the narrative, regardless of what it looked like, or they just didn't see the writing on the wall. Some were more open with what the possibilities might end up looking like because of what was also going on in the Senate. Some, quote, didn't know anything about the tax rebate negotiations, unquote. Some shared what I already knew about some of the governor's demands. Just helps give me insight into who's going to be forthcoming and who's just playing the game. In other news, I'm really interested to know what they're actually trying to cook up or get passed because they have been in partisan caucus for hours, and I finally gave up on them. It's getting close to 8 p.m., and I still got to record a podcast. I can't wait for them to get their act together. In other news, local residents and leaders keep gaining ground in the Capitol, and 2 wins for the little guy happened this week. Number 1, this week, there were committee hearings related to data centers and residents venting their frustrations on how they feel like they were blindsided by some of these major projects. Number 2, the community solar bill that has been debated and rewritten and gone ahead at a glacial pace for half a decade is getting a vote to advance out of the Assembly Committee. I think the past few months, everybody has really gotten really frustrated with the energy companies really quickly. Between the proposals to make everyone else pay 25% of the data center capacity buildouts, to how much rates have gone up and how much more they're asking for rates to go up in the next few years, one of the consequences of that is a bipartisan bill to move forward in spite of the deep-pocketed 800-pound gorilla of the energy lobby pulling every lever and pushing every button, try and kill this community solar bill, which is simply to allow local groups to pool their resources so some medium-sized solar arrays can be controlled by someone other than the energy monopoly. We all know there's no competition and that they are a monopoly, but they are actually brutally acting like it, which means that there needs to be a significant correction in the marketplace at their expense, and it feels like that's the momentum that's starting to happen. And finally, I give you a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, "Give me 6 hours to chop a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." Unquote. Preparation matters, acting with purpose matters, and discipline matters. Whether we're talking about school budgets, tax policy, or energy infrastructure, sharpening the axe before swinging is usually the wiser path. Have a great second half of your week, and as always, thanks for listening. The Wisconsin Property Taxpayers Inc. is a nonpartisan membership organization consisting of thousands of small business, farm, and homeowner members in every what the heck is an ice cave corner of the state. Founded in 1985, the organization is committed to providing its members with up-to-date information, legislative advocacy, and exclusive cost-saving benefits. Find out how to join at WPTOnline.org/join.